Today I'm going to be reviewing some of my subscribers' interiors. If you have watched the last couple of videos, you would have seen that I asked you guys to send me a photo or a couple of photos of one room in your space, whether that is your house, apartment, your rental, wherever you're living at the moment. And I would try to offer some interior design advice that might help you with the things that you're struggling with in each space. I'm going to break this video up into probably a few different videos because I got a lot of submissions and I want to try and help as many of you as I can. So if you also still want to send some photos of a room that you need help with, you can send them to my Instagram at Hannah______what. And you have to send me a message. I accept the request and then you'll be able to send photos after that. So just keep that in mind if it doesn't allow you to do that initially. If I haven't included your room in this video, don't worry, it will probably be included in an upcoming one, but I hope that also the advice I give is kind of general enough that you could apply it to a space that you're struggling with. It's kind of universal advice and yeah, so hopefully you can get something out of it. So the first subscriber has sent in a photo of her bedroom and she says she likes a really clean, calm sort of environment, but wants to add more warmth and color and character to the space, which I think is definitely achievable in this option. She's also got this sort of awkward little angled, I don't really know what this is. She said it's sort of like a study nook, but it's kind of like a corridor that doesn't go anywhere. I can't really see if there's a door at the end. First impressions are, when I look at it, the apartment's very stark. Like the white of the walls almost looks like it has a grey undertone, which is already going to offset any sort of warmth and make it feel cool, as well as the carpet, which is grey. I'm assuming that this is a rental, so my first suggestion would be to paint it if you're allowed to, but if not, that's fine. We can still work with the wall colour. So they've already started adding warmth to the space with the bed head, and I think that timber's a really good way to add warmth to a space, and they could continue to do this by maybe adding some side tables or things that are either, timber or a warmer toned color. I also think there's a lot of angles going on in the space, so even if they were to add like a timber side table that's round to sort of offset those angles a little bit, I think oftentimes when you have sharp angles and sharp edges, it can actually sort of on a subconscious level make a room feel a lot colder or maybe slightly less inviting. So adding more kind of organic materials and shapes into a space is a really good way to start to kind of counteract this. The same can be achieved with bedding. Obviously, she's mentioned that she likes really calm and sort of muted interiors, which is fine. I still think you can definitely add warmth, but I would still encourage her to add some color, but you can definitely use more tonal colors. So that's sort of like muted tones of maybe more primary or bolder colors. And I think in this instance, it would be nice to add some sort of earthier tones, maybe some like deeper burgundy browns or some terracotta colors or just earthy tones in general to kind of give it a little bit more dimension, because at the moment, as much as I like white and sort of neutral bedding in that sense, I think it's really just kind of blending into the walls and it's not really adding much dimension to the space. It's not really adding warmth. You could always keep the bedding as it is and then maybe add some more kind of interesting textural, colorful throws or things on the bed, or switch up the top pillow covers for something that isn't matching the doona cover. If you're wanting, that's like an easy fix, I think, if you're wanting to add warmth there. And then from what I can see in the photos, it doesn't look like there's a lot of sort of freestanding lighting or wall lights. It looks like it's all down lights, and I'm assuming that maybe those bulbs are like a cool white as opposed to a warm white bulb. So I would say in the bed area, it really just needs to be sort of fleshed out a little bit. You could add some more lighting to the bedside tables. You could definitely get some clamp lamps to go on the bed head, which would look really great. And even on that kind of singular wall, that sort of structural wall next to the bed, I think you could even put some artwork and then have a light above it and just kind of play with the scale of the lights. So you have wall lights, you might have a floor lamp somewhere, you could have a smaller art light above the piece of art on that wall. But I definitely think that this is quite an easy fix if you're wanting to just offset the cool tones a little bit more. Again, just adding more artworks, more lighting, more textural layers on the bed, a bit more contrast. I think that's going to make a really big difference to the space, and you actually don't need to spend that much money or do that much to achieve that. I think it's just, again, looks like the space needs a little bit more layering. So the next space that we're going to look at is a bathroom. They've said that it feels cold and sterile and they can do anything except change the tiles. So that's good. That means that we can do a lot. And looking at these photos, I definitely agree that it feels quite cold and sterile. There's not a lot of warmth going on there. I think as well, similarly to the bedroom, everything's very white and cold and stark, and there's not enough contrast to kind of make it feel warmer. I definitely think bathrooms shouldn't be overlooked. I think every space in the house needs to be considered and intentional when looking at interior design. And so, yeah, as I said, the bathroom is no exception. So from the photos, it looks like this bathroom is quite small, but small doesn't mean that you can't make it bold or impactful. And I actually don't mind the white tiles. I just think that everything's kind of blending in a little bit too much. So I would suggest to paint the wall and the ceiling above the tiles into a warmer tone, a warmer color, just to sort of, again, offset that cool tone of the tiles. It doesn't have to be a really drastic color, but just something that has more of a warm undertone, even if that's like a buttery yellow, or if you want to do something more impactful in like a really deep burgundy color. I think just stay away from cool tones. Anything with like a blue, gray, or sort of green undertone, I would steer clear of, because it's just going to, again, make it feel cold, and we're really trying to make it feel rich and warm and inviting. Again, it doesn't really help that you've got the grey floor tiles, and I think I couldn't tell if it was concrete, but now that I'm looking at the photos, I think it actually is a grey tile. I don't really think we can do anything there unless you're willing to do like peel and stick, but in this instance, I wouldn't bother. I think things you could do is sort of swap out the corner cabinet for something that's a bit warmer. Maybe you could do a timber storage unit, bring in some warmer tones. And I would also think about finding something that's maybe slightly more enclosed. I know that this is probably quite practical, having everything within arm's reach, having things open, but I think, especially in bathrooms, we have so many products and toiletries and things that I think it just creates a lot of visual clutter. And in a small space, that's only going to make it feel smaller. So if you could find something that's sort of, I think, similar layout in terms of being tall, but maybe slightly more enclosed, and then if it's open on top, you could have, a few nice things to make it feel a little bit more styled. And maybe this is like a small thing, but small things make all the difference, I believe. Like details, what is it? The devil's in the detail, and I really believe that's true. So another thing you could do, I really like the towels that are in the bathroom, but again, because they are blue, I think they are only enhancing the cool tones of the space. So you could think about getting some warmer bath towels or hand towels and things with, again, warmer tones in them, because they are on display and they are impacting the space, whether you see that or not. So I think opt for something a little bit warmer toned with your towels. Again, like I said, if you can look at the smaller things, so even the towel hooks, it looks like you've just got like the stick-on wall hooks, but I wonder if you could find something a little bit more interesting and more substantial looking as opposed to just a plastic hook, because I think, as I said, it's the small things that really need to be considered as well, and that's actually going to make a big difference to the space. So again, you could get some timber wall hooks, and I'm sure there are systems and ways of installing wall hooks that are renter friendly. Again, I don't know if this is a rental. And then I think it's just little things like styling things, like can you change the light above the mirror? Maybe you could get a slightly softer globe, or you could actually change the light fitting itself to make it more purposeful or intentional with the fitting itself. And then I think you could even add some art like above the toilet, centered on the toilet, just little things that maybe have color and contrast and texture in them that are going to add to the space, because at the moment it's looking quite bare and I guess just a functional bathroom. Again, you could get a sort of colorful, when I say colorful, I mean like nice, colorful, I'll put some examples on the screen, floor mat to kind of cover up those tiles a little bit. But I don't think this is a lost cause. I definitely think every space has potential and there's opportunity to do different things to make it completely optimized and so much better and so much more functional and nicer to be in. So hopefully those tips have helped a little bit. Okay, now moving on to a kitchen. I really love this kitchen. This was sent in by one of my subscribers and they've said it's quite a small kitchen. It has really nice, unique features like this sort of orange, I think it's tiled or maybe it's laminate bench top. And at the moment they have a small dining table that they use to host themselves and then 3 other people. And they also use it as a desk or like a study area when they're working. So I really love this kitchen. I love the countertops. I love all the little original cabinets and the details around the windows, like the little cute scalloped detail at the top near the blinds, and then also the open shelves, just the joinery details in general. I think that the layout of the kitchen area
there's nothing you could do. It's kind of like a corridor style kitchen area. And I actually think for the purpose of just day-to-day use, it's quite functional. The first thing I would suggest is to maybe try to conceal some things that don't need to be out on the bench space. So maybe make it a little bit more aesthetic. Obviously, we want spaces to be functional. So I'm not saying to have everything packed away, especially if you use things on a daily basis. Leave those things out. But I think, you could add some elements to make it more, just aesthetic and interesting to look at. You could maybe have like a benchtop lamp. You could have some dishes and ceramics and things just to make it feel a little bit more styled. And I don't think you need to go over the top, especially with small spaces. We don't, again, want it to feel cluttered. And already you've started to do that on those open shelves, which I think is really nice and already adds character to the space. Again, I really like the blind that's over the window. I think that is an interesting element of texture. I like the color of it with the orange bench top. And I'm just looking at the flooring. Obviously, this is like linoleum flooring or vinyl flooring of the grey timber, which I'm not a fan of, obviously. But I think you could actually incorporate sort of like a long, skinny runner style rug here if you were wanting to kind of hide that, but also take it as an opportunity to add, again, some more texture and color to the space. And maybe just kind of make that space feel more cohesive and tie everything together. I think you could do a really cool sisal. You could do even something a little bit more like Moroccan inspired or with a pattern on it. I would steer clear from anything too flat looking because it's going to show dirt and things, especially because I assume this is quite a high traffic area. And then moving over to the area where we have the dining table and the cooker and everything, I really like the little stainless steel unit that you've got next to the cooker. I think it's really cool. You could even potentially add like a curtain to the underside of the legs, but I actually quite like the commercial look of it and how it's all open and how you kind of got your chopping board and utensils and things on there. It's very practical as well. I think there's a missed opportunity here for adding maybe some shelving or even like a magnetic knife holder or a hanging rod in this area. Obviously, it's small and you kind of need bench space when you're cooking on the cooktop. So I would maybe think about adding like a rod to the wall under the range hood so that you can hang pots and things on, and then maybe some open shelves or, like I said, a magnetic sort of utensil holder on the wall above that stainless steel unit. And then just a small thing, I think looking at these photos, I'm not sure if it's a power box next to the cooker, that kind of blue little door, but I'm wondering if you can paint that to just sort of make that wall, make it all kind of blend in a little bit more because it's really standing out and I don't think it's necessarily something that you want to stand out. So that's probably a quick fix and something that you could do.
And then they did mention that they are going to be getting a different dining table. And I really love this setup. I love the chairs. I love the cute little tablecloth on the table, but it is eating into the space a little bit and it feels a little bit cramped in the corner. So it's a little bit difficult for me to see what's happening in the living room. But what I would suggest is to potentially get a kind of long and narrow rectangular dining table and have that back onto the sofa. And that way you kind of get a bit more space in the kitchen and you can probably have a bit more space for people. And even if you're entertaining, you could probably have one more extra person along that table. I think just because it's pushed up right up against those sort of open shelving, which looks really lovely, I just think, it would give you a little bit more opportunity. And then you could always move the sofa out of the way if you were having more people. And that way you've got 2 extra seats on the other side of the table if you wanted to. Overall, I think this is a really cute kitchen and I actually don't think you have to do too much to change it. I think it's just about adding some styling elements, some aesthetic sort of and functional details. Maybe just having some more storage solutions, but then having like some artworks and fun little kind of benchtop lighting details. But I really love an original kitchen and I'm so glad you sent this in, so thank you. Lastly, we are going to look at a living room space. So I've tried to include one of each of the kind of main spaces in a house in this video, just so that, again, if yours is not included, you can take some advice for your own space. So this was sent in by a subscriber and they're saying they kind of just want some help with the general layout and configuration of the space and they feel like the sofa is too big for the space. So my first impression when I had a look at the photos that they sent through is it feels like the entry and the living area are kind of divided up into 2 zones, and I think it would be really nice to make it feel a bit more cohesive and like merge the 2 areas in a way because they are in the same room. It feels like the entry side is a little bit more playful, there's a bit more character and mix of furniture, there's artwork, there's cool lighting, there's a really nice vintage sideboard. And then when you move over to the living room side, it has a lot of potential, but it feels a little bit unfinished, or maybe like there are some pieces that I think could be swapped out to make it, I guess, optimize the space. If we start on the entry side, I really like what's going on here. I think the lighting's really cool. I'm not sure what that ceiling light is, but I like it. The wall light's great. Again, there's a really good mix of materials here, like the metal and the timber, which means that your eye is going to remain interested, and it's kind of quite an evocative space. Maybe you could swap out the shoe rack for something maybe more concealed. Maybe you could do like a chest sort of thing so that your shoes aren't on display, which I think is still practical. It just means then I just think that these shoe racks can look a little bit flimsy. I also really like the sideboard. I think it's great, and that you've got that big mirror on there that reflects the view across from the sofa and sort of the trees outside. I think that's really nice to have there. Again, I really like the artwork when you walk in. It's just like this nice injection of color. So as I said, I think this side of the space is working really well. It's just about visually merging the spaces a bit better so that they kind of are reading as one. So they mentioned that they think that the sofa is too large for the space, and I disagree. I don't think it's the size of the sofa. I think it actually is okay. I think it's just the configuration of the living room. So looking at the photos, what I would do is actually either two options. One, I would leave the sofa where it is and have the two blue chairs facing it, so more of a conversational setting. Because at the moment, it just feels like the furniture is in like an L on the sort of edges of the room, which means you've got this big void in the middle that isn't really serving a purpose. So you could either have the sofa there with the two armchairs facing it, or alternatively, you could swap that configuration, have the two chairs on the window side and then the sofa backing onto that that entry area. And you could even have like a console, like a narrow console sort of thing behind the sofa with some styling items, maybe like a vase and some books and things to, again, add a little bit more dimension and elements to that space. And then I would probably swap out the round coffee table for something kind of low and rectangular that you can really like have fun with styling, because I guess the space itself is quite neutral. The furniture, obviously not the chairs, but the sofa is quite neutral. And I think there's definitely an opportunity to kind of take the playfulness that you have in the entry space and bring it into the living room. I think like a low timber rectangular coffee table would be really cool. Adding even, I actually kind of like that the sofa is a little bit bare, and I do like what's going on with the sort of, I don't know what that is, like a throw on the sofa, but I quite like it. But I think there's opportunity to add more color to the sofa as well. I kind of like that everything's quite low and sunken, and it feels like this really cool kind of space, and you've got like the record player and the art, and really creating this nice kind of inviting vibe into the space. If you are again wanting to add more texture, I think you could even add some really cool blinds to the two windows behind the sofa. I think there's definitely opportunity there to add some more color or some texture. I always am such a huge fan of woven blinds. I think if you have an opportunity or a window to furnish, do something kind of interesting. I don't think you always just need to do like a white or a linen. I mean, I know I've got that in my room at home at the moment, but if it was up to me, I'd be doing something more textural, leaning into that a little bit more. And then I think as well, the rug that you've got is quite flat, which I feel like is kind of bringing the space down a little bit. You've kind of got, it seems, maybe slightly low ceilings in the space. So I think it would be really cool to have a big area rug that's patterned and have lots of like rich, bold colors to really elevate the space and make it feel a little bit more refreshed. Because at the moment, I feel like this rug is just making it feel a little bit drab and flat and kind of pulling everything down. And again, I like the artwork that you've got in between the windows. I think maybe there's an opportunity there to kind of one artwork stacked on top of another, like maybe it's a pair or maybe two completely opposing artworks. But you've got the wall space there to do that. But I mean, overall, I think the space is great and there's a lot of potential here. You could add in some more lighting if you wanted to, because it looks like in the living room, you've really only got the tulip light. And I think there is opportunity for another wall light somewhere, or just some like smaller lamps or a floor lamp to, again, just like bring these areas together. But overall, I think it's great. I don't think there's much you need to do. It's just a little bit of moving and shaking and reconfiguring things a bit to kind of, as I said, be a little bit more cohesive. So I hope that's been helpful. I love seeing the spaces that you guys are living in, and I love offering my advice, and feel free to weigh in and leave comments below on what you guys think. And again, as I mentioned, if you want some interior design advice, feel free to send it across to my Instagram, Hannah_______. It's 5 underscores. And I am banking them. So I'm going to do a few of these videos, and let me know what you think, if this is helpful or if you have any suggestions. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.